My name is Rosanna, 27 years old, and until last Thanksgiving I thought I was a good daughter. For years I worked double shifts as a nurse to support my parents financially, paying their mortgage, utilities, even their car payments. I was excited to share my promotion news over turkey dinner. Instead, they ambushed me with accusations of inadequate support. "This is our thanks for your little support," they said, and asked me to move out. I was devastated. If you're watching this video, I'd love to know where you're from. Hit subscribe if you've ever felt unappreciated by family, and let's journey through this heartbreaking story together. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Ohio, with parents who worked hard to provide a comfortable life for me, their only child. My father worked at an automotive manufacturing plant for 20 years, while my mother took on part-time work as a cashier at the local supermarket. We weren't wealthy, but we never worried about paying bills or putting food on the table. I had a happy childhood filled with weekend picnics at the lake summer camps and Christmas mornings surrounded by presents. Everything changed when I turned 16. The automotive plant where my father worked announced massive layoffs, and he was among those who lost their jobs. I still remember the night he came home early, his face ashen as he sat at our kitchen table, hands trembling as he told my mother and me that he had been let go after 20 years of service. With only a high school diploma and highly specialized skills that didn't transfer easily to other industries, finding comparable work proved nearly impossible. My mother increased her hours at the supermarket, but her income was nowhere near enough to maintain our lifestyle. Within months, the financial strain became unbearable. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter marked with alarming red final notice stamps. I would find my mother at the table late at night, calculator in hand, tears streaming down her face as she tried to figure out which bills to pay and which to postpone. Without being asked, I applied for a job at the local diner. I was hired as a waitress, working evenings and weekends while maintaining my grades at school. My first paycheck wasn't much, just $342, but I handed it entirely to my mother, who hugged me tightly with tears in her eyes. "You're too young to be worrying about adult problems," she said, trying to refuse the money. "We're a family," I insisted. "We help each other." That became our new normal. I would attend school during the day, work at the diner until closing, come home to do homework, and repeat the cycle. My social life disappeared, but it seemed a small price to pay for keeping a roof over our heads. Meanwhile, my father sank into a deep depression, spending days watching television or staring blankly out the window. His job applications were repeatedly rejected, each one chipping away at his self-esteem. During my senior year of high school, I received scholarship offers from several out-of-state universities. My teachers encouraged me to accept, saying my academic performance and dedication deserved the opportunity. But the thought of leaving my parents behind struggling to make ends meet filled me with guilt. Instead, I enrolled in the local community college's nursing program, which allowed me to live at home and continue working at the diner. The nursing program was demanding, but I managed to balance it with an even more grueling work schedule. I picked up a second job as a night stocker at a 24-hour grocery store, often functioning on just 4 hours of sleep. There were nights I would cry from exhaustion in my car before summoning the strength to walk into work, knowing that my paycheck was the only thing keeping the electricity on at home. By 22, I had completed my nursing degree and secured a position at Memorial Hospital. The steady income and benefits were a lifeline for our family. My father had found occasional work as a handyman, and my mother continued at the supermarket, but their combined income barely covered groceries and their personal expenses. I took on the responsibility of paying the mortgage, utilities, property taxes, and both of their car payments. When friends asked why I still lived with my parents at my age, I would joke about saving money or keeping an eye on them. The truth was more complicated. We had developed a dynamic where I had become the primary provider and they had grown accustomed to financial support. Whenever I considered moving out, my mother would remind me how much they needed me, or my father would mention a new medical concern that required attention. I convinced myself that this arrangement was temporary, that eventually my parents would find better jobs or adjust their lifestyle to match their income, that one day I would have the freedom to live independently without the weight of guilt. But years passed, and nothing changed except the increasing expectations placed upon me. Despite the financial strain, I remained committed to my career. I took extra shifts and pursued additional certifications to increase my value to the hospital. Last month, my dedication paid off when I was offered a promotion to charge nurse, which came with a significant salary increase. For the first time, I saw a path to financial stability that might allow me to finally move into my own place while still supporting my parents. That promotion was the good news I was excited to share at Thanksgiving dinner. After years of sacrifice, I thought my parents would be proud of my accomplishment. I never imagined they would see it only as an opportunity to demand more. Thanksgiving morning dawned bright and crisp. I had requested the day off months in advance, excited for a rare full day with family. I woke early to prepare stopping at the gourmet market to purchase organic vegetables, a free-range turkey, and a bottle of expensive wine that cost nearly half my grocery budget for the week. I wanted this dinner to be special, a celebration of my hard work and dedication. When I arrived at my parents' house, the one with the mortgage I paid my mother was still in her robe, coffee in hand, watching a morning talk show. "I brought everything for dinner," I said, setting down the heavy grocery bags on the kitchen counter. "That's nice, dear," she replied without looking away from the television. "Your father and I thought you would handle the cooking since we hosted last year," I bit back a retort. I had also hosted last year and the year before that. In fact, I couldn't remember the last time either of my parents had taken the initiative to prepare a holiday meal. But I smiled and nodded, unwilling to start the day with an argument. "Of course, Mum, I'm happy to cook." I spent the next several hours preparing the meal while my parents occasionally wandered into the kitchen, grabbing snacks or commenting on my progress without offering assistance. My father complained about the brand of cranberry sauce I had purchased, pointing out that it wasn't the one he preferred. My mother suggested the turkey might be dry, though it was still hours from being fully cooked. These small criticisms weren't unusual, but today they seemed more pointed, more frequent. There was a strange tension in the air, an undercurrent of hostility I couldn't quite place. I dismissed it as holiday stress and focused on creating the perfect meal. By 4 o'clock, I had transformed the kitchen into a Thanksgiving showcase. The golden brown turkey rested on our best serving platter, surrounded by all the traditional sides: fluffy mashed potatoes, rich gravy, sweet potato casserole topped with pecans, green bean casserole, homemade rolls, and a colourful salad. I had even prepared 2 pies from scratch pumpkin and apple, my father's favourites. Dinner's ready. I called, placing the final dish on the dining table I had carefully set with our family's china, used only for special occasions. My parents took their seats, my father at the head of the table, my mother to his right. I sat across from my mother, taking a moment to appreciate the scene. Despite the financial struggles and tension, we were together, healthy with food on the table. I felt a surge of pride in what I had accomplished. "This looks adequate," my father said, serving himself a generous portion of turkey without waiting for grace or any words of thanksgiving. "I spent all day on this meal," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "And I have some exciting news to share." "We have something to discuss as well," my mother interjected, exchanging a meaningful look with my father. "But you can go first." Encouraged by the opportunity, I straightened in my seat. "I got promoted to charge nurse. It comes with a significant pay increase and better hours. I'm really excited about the opportunities this will open up." I waited for congratulations, for some acknowledgement of my achievement. Instead, my father scoffed, setting down his fork with a clatter that made me jump. "Perfect timing," he said, his voice cold. "Your mother and I have been talking about our financial situation." My stomach tightened with familiar dread. These conversations inevitably led to requests for additional money. Usually they were framed as temporary emergencies, unexpected expenses that just happened to arise when I received extra income from overtime or bonuses. "What about it?" I asked cautiously, setting down my own fork, my appetite suddenly gone. My mother pulled a folded paper from her pocket and slid it across the table. "We've made a list of additional expenses we need you to cover." I unfolded the paper, my hands trembling slightly. It was a neatly typed list of items. New roof, $24,000. Kitchen renovation, $35,000. 2-year lease on new SUV, $15,000. Annual vacation fund, $6,000. Additional monthly allowance, $1,500. The total amount was staggering, far exceeding even my new salary. These weren't necessities. They were luxury items that many working families could never afford. "Is this a joke?" I asked, looking up from the paper. "Does it look like we're joking?" My father responded, his expression stern. "Your cousin Thomas bought his parents a vacation home in Florida last year. Meanwhile, we're stuck with a leaking roof and a 20-year-old kitchen. Thomas is a corporate attorney who makes 6 figures," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I'm a nurse who already gives you nearly 70% of my income." And we appreciate that basic support, my mother said, emphasizing the word basic in a way that made my chest tighten. But with your promotion, you should be able to do more. We sacrificed everything to raise you. The unfairness of her statement left me momentarily speechless. I had been the one sacrificing for years, putting my own life on hold to support them. I had never taken vacations, rarely bought new clothes, and postponed my own dreams of travel and further education to ensure their comfort. I already pay the mortgage, the utilities, the property taxes, both of your car payments and your cell phone bills, I said finally. I've been supporting this household since I was 16 years old. What more do you want from me? A grateful daughter who doesn't complain about helping her parents, my father snapped. Is that too much to ask? The conversation spiraled from there. Every time I tried to explain my perspective to make them understand the financial reality, they countered with emotional manipulation. They brought up childhood illnesses, they had nursed me through school events, they had attended sacrifices they had made when I was young, all presented as debts I could never repay. We gave you everything, my mother said tearfully, and this is how you repay us, by counting pennies. I'm not counting pennies, I said, my own eyes filling with tears of frustration. I'm trying to build my own life while still supporting you. Your own life, my father repeated mockingly. What about our lives? We're getting older. We deserve comfort in our retirement years. You're both in your 50s, I pointed out. Most people your age are still working and saving for retirement, not asking their children to fund luxury renovations. My father's face flushed with anger. If you can't properly support your family, maybe you should move out, he said, his voice dangerously low. This is our thanks for your little support. The words struck like a physical blow. Little support. After everything I had done, everything I had sacrificed, they characterized my contributions as little support. I looked at their faces, searching for any sign of recognition for my years of devotion, but saw only entitlement and disappointment. In that moment, something broke inside me. The dutiful daughter who had shouldered responsibilities far beyond her years, who had given up scholarships and opportunities, who had worked until exhaustion, just to keep her family afloat, finally recognized the truth. This wasn't a partnership, it was exploitation, and it would never end unless I ended it. I left the Thanksgiving table without another word, my dinner untouched, tears streaming down my face. I grabbed my purse and jacket, ignoring my mother's calls to come back and be reasonable. The slam of the front door behind me provided a momentary satisfaction that quickly dissolved into overwhelming grief as I stumbled to my car. I drove aimlessly through town, barely registering the cheerful holiday decorations adorning houses and storefronts. Families were visible through windows, gathered around tables, laughing and celebrating together. Normal families. Families where love wasn't measured in dollar signs and obligation. Without conscious decision, I found myself parking at Riverside Park, where I had played as a child. The playground was deserted in the November chill, the swings moving gently in the breeze. I sat on a bench overlooking the river, allowing the tears to flow freely now that I was alone. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts and calls from my parents. I finally looked down to read the messages, each one more manipulative than the last. You're being childish. Come home and we'll discuss this rationally. After everything we've done for you, this is how you behave on Thanksgiving. If you're not back in 30 minutes, don't bother coming back tonight. The last message was the final straw. I called the one person I knew I could count on, my best friend from nursing school, Amanda. Can I come over? I asked when she answered, my voice breaking. I don't have anywhere else to go. Of course, she replied without hesitation. What happened? I'll explain when I get there. Thank you, Amanda. 20 minutes later, I was sitting on Amanda's couch, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, a mug of hot tea warming my hands as I recounted the disastrous dinner. Amanda listened without interrupting her expression, growing increasingly horrified as I detailed not just tonight's confrontation, but the years of financial dependence and emotional manipulation. Rosanna, I had no idea it was this bad, she said, when I finally fell silent. I knew you supported your parents, but this is financial abuse. Financial abuse. The term had never occurred to me. I had always seen my situation as a daughter doing her duty, fulfilling her obligation to the parents who had raised her. Yes, financial abuse, Amanda confirmed. They're exploiting your sense of duty and manipulating you emotionally to extract money they haven't earned. And from what you've told me, it's been happening since you were a teenager. She got up and retrieved her laptop, opening it on the coffee table between us. Let's look at the numbers. How much exactly are you giving them each month? I hesitated, embarrassed by the amount, but then pulled up my banking app. Together we went through my monthly expenses, the mortgage payment on my parents' house, the utilities, their 2-car payments, property taxes, insurance, premiums, cell phone bills, and the emergency expenses that seemed to arise with suspicious regularity. The total was staggering. Over 70% of my income went directly to supporting my parents, leaving me with barely enough to cover my own basic needs. I had been living on a strict budget, forgoing vacations, new clothes, and even necessary dental work to ensure my parents' comfort. And what percentage of their own income do they contribute to the household? Amanda asked gently. I realized I didn't know. Despite paying most of their bills, I had never questioned how they spent their own money. My father's handyman work and my mother's supermarket job provided modest but regular income. Where did that money go? Amanda pulled up old text messages from my parents, messages I had shown her over the years without recognizing the pattern they revealed. Requests for money that always coincided with my paychecks or bonuses, emotional manipulation whenever I expressed hesitation, promises to pay me back someday that were never fulfilled. This isn't your fault, Amanda said, seeing the distress on my face. They've conditioned you since you were a teenager to believe this was normal, that this was what a good daughter does. But it's not normal, Rosanna. It's exploitation. I spent a sleepless night in Amanda's guest room, my mind racing through years of interactions with my parents, seeing them in a new and painful light. Every emergency expense, every guilt trip, every dismissal of my own needs now appeared as calculated moves in a long game of financial manipulation. By morning, I had made a decision. I couldn't change the past, but I could control my future. I would no longer enable my parents' financial dependence. I would set boundaries, firm boundaries, even if it meant walking away completely. Amanda helped me create a plan. I would return to my parents' house, calmly inform them of my decision, gather my essential belongings, and move out immediately. I would stop all automatic payments to their accounts and bills. I would offer them a reasonable transition period to adjust their lifestyle and find alternative income sources, but I would not continue to fund their lives at the expense of my own. They won't take this well, I said, anxiety churning in my stomach. Probably not, Amanda agreed. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself now. You've more than fulfilled any obligation to them. I spent the morning making calls, securing a short-term rental apartment that I could move into immediately, arranging for mail forwarding and contacting the utility companies to remove my name from my parents' accounts. With each call, I felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration. For the first time in more than a decade, I was putting myself first. Are you ready for this? Amanda asked as I prepared to leave for my parents' house. No, I admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. I pulled into my parents' driveway at exactly noon, steeling myself for the confrontation ahead. The house looked peaceful from the outside, giving no indication of the emotional battleground it was about to become. Taking a deep breath, I walked up to the front door and used my key for what I knew would be the last time. My parents were in the living room, my father in his recliner, watching a football game, my mother on the couch with her tablet. They looked up as I entered, their expressions a mixture of annoyance and relief. Finally decided to come home. Did you? My father said, muting the television. Your mother's been worried sick. The familiar guilt tactic almost worked. I felt the instinctive urge to apologize, to smooth things over, to slip back into the role of dutiful daughter. Instead, I remained standing, my car keys still in my hand. I'm not staying, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I came to tell you that I'm moving out effective immediately, and I will no longer be paying your bills. The stunned silence that followed gave me courage to continue. I've supported this household since I was 16 years old. I've paid the mortgage, the utilities, the property taxes, your car payments, and countless other expenses. I've sacrificed my own opportunities and financial security to ensure yours. And yesterday, you made it clear that none of that was enough, that it was little support. My mother's face paled. Rosanna, you're overreacting. We were just discussing the future now that you've gotten your promotion. No, Mom, you presented me with a list of luxury demands that totaled more than my annual salary after years of taking the majority of my income. You're not discussing, you're taking advantage of me. My father stood up, his face flushing with anger. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, by abandoning your parents when they need you. What exactly have you done for me in the last 11 years? I asked the question genuine rather than accusatory. Since I was 16, I've been the provider in this family. I put my life on hold to support you. I gave up scholarships, opportunities, independence, all to keep you comfortable. We raised you, my mother exclaimed, tears forming. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. Yes, you did your job as parents until I was 16, I acknowledged. And I've been doing your job as adults ever since. I'm not abandoning you. I'm expecting you to take responsibility for yourselves like every other capable adult does. My father's approach changed, his anger shifting to dismissal. You're bluffing, he scoffed. Where would you go? What would you do without us? I've already secured an apartment, I replied, and I imagine I'll do quite well without the financial burden you've placed on me all these years. I proceeded to explain in calm, clear terms exactly what was changing. I would not be paying their mortgage after this month. The utilities would need to be transferred to their names. The automatic payments from my account would stop. They would be responsible for their own car payments, cell phone bills, and all other expenses moving forward. As the reality of my decision sank in, my parents' reactions transformed. My father's dismissal turned to outrage, then to threats. If you walk out that door, don't ever think about coming back, he shouted. You're no daughter of mine. My mother shifted from tears to pleading, then to manipulation. What will people think when they hear you've abandoned your aging parents? What kind of nurse treats her own family this way? We'll have to sell the house, move to some terrible apartment. Is that what you want for us? Each barb was designed to hit my deepest insecurities, to activate the guilt that had controlled me for years. But something had fundamentally changed. I could see the manipulation, now recognize it for what it was. And while it still hurt, it no longer controlled me. I'll be back tomorrow with boxes for the rest of my things, I said, heading for the stairs to pack my immediate essentials. I suggest you use this time to create a budget based on your actual income, not mine. I spent 30 minutes gathering what I needed for the next few days, clothes, toiletries, important documents, and a few sentimental items I couldn't bear to leave behind. My parents followed me around the house, alternating between angry accusations and tearful pleas. I focused on the task at hand, responding minimally, refusing to be drawn into a circular emotional argument. As I carried my bags to the car, my father made one last attempt to regain control. You'll be back, he said, his tone suddenly smug. When you realize how much you need us when you're all alone in some sad little apartment, you'll come crawling back. And maybe if you apologize properly, we'll consider letting you come home. My mother nodded beside him. You've always needed us more than we needed you, Rosanna. You'll see that soon enough. Their confidence struck me as delusional given the financial reality, but I recognized it as a final attempt to shake my resolve. I placed the last bag in my trunk and turned to face them one last time. I've needed parents who love me without conditions, who support my independence rather than exploiting it, who take pride in my accomplishments, instead of seeing them as opportunities for personal gain. I haven't had those parents for a very long time, if ever. So no, I won't be back. Not until you can see me as a daughter rather than an ATM. I got into my car and drove away, watching in the rearview mirror as they stood in the driveway, my father's dismissive laughter following me down the street. Despite the pain and uncertainty ahead, I felt something unexpected relief. The weight of obligation that had pressed on me for years was lifting, allowing me to breathe fully for the first time in my adult life. The first month in my new apartment was a revelation. Though small and sparsely furnished, it was mine. Every decision, from what to eat for dinner to when to do laundry, was made without consideration of anyone else's demands or expectations. The financial freedom was even more startling. Without my parents' expenses, my nurse's salary was more than adequate for a comfortable life. I opened a savings account and watched with amazement as money actually accumulated rather than drained away. Amanda became a regular visitor, bringing housewarming gifts and takeout food, helping me adjust to independent living. Other friends who had gradually drifted away during years, when I had no time or energy for social connections, cautiously re-entered my life. I discovered that people had noticed my absence, but assumed I was simply busy or uninterested in maintaining friendships. The truth that I had been trapped in a cycle of financial exploitation by my own parents was met with sympathy and support rather than the judgment I had feared. On Amanda's recommendation, I began seeing a therapist specializing in family trauma. Dr. Marshall helped me understand the dynamics that had allowed the financial abuse to continue for so long, the guilt and obligation that had been weaponized against me. Each session was painful, but clarifying, like lancing an infected wound to allow healing to begin. Meanwhile, my parents launched an aggressive campaign to regain control. The first week brought dozens of calls and text messages alternating between angry demands and heartbroken pleas. When I maintained my boundaries, responding only with brief factual messages about when I would collect the rest of my belongings, the communication became increasingly desperate. The electric company is threatening to shut off our power. Is that what you want? We can't make the mortgage payment this month. We'll be homeless because of you. Your father needs a medical procedure that insurance won't cover. How can you abandon him when he's sick? Each message was carefully crafted to maximize guilt, but Dr. Marshall helped me see through the manipulation. We created templates for responses that maintained boundaries without engaging in emotional arguments. Eventually, I limited communication to email, only checking it just once a day to preserve my mental health. The real consequences of financial independence began hitting my parents about 3 weeks after I moved out. The first utility shut-off notice arrived, followed quickly by a late payment warning from the mortgage company. My father called in a rage, demanding I fix this mess immediately. When I calmly suggested he use his handyman income to pay the electric bill, he hung up. My parents began reaching out to extended family, telling a carefully edited version of events that cast me as an ungrateful daughter who had abandoned them without warning. Fortunately, most relatives had long suspected the true nature of our relationship. My Aunt Judith, my father's sister, called me directly to get the full story. After listening to my explanation, she sighed heavily. I've been worried about this for years, she admitted. The way they depended on you wasn't normal or healthy. I tried to talk to your father about it once, but he shut me down completely. I should have tried harder, said something to you directly. I probably wouldn't have listened, I said honestly. I believed I was doing what a good daughter should do. Well, I'm proud of you for setting boundaries now, she said. And don't worry about the family believing their version of events. Most of us have known your father long enough to recognize when he's manipulating a situation. True to Aunt Judith's prediction, my parents' attempts to rally family support largely failed. Instead, relatives began calling them with uncomfortable questions about their financial decisions over the years. The narrative was shifting and my parents were losing control of it. Their final desperate attempt came exactly 1 month after I moved out. I was just finishing a 12-hour shift at the hospital when I was paged to the front desk. There stood my parents, my father red-faced and agitated, my mother tearful and dishevelled. Your parents insist on seeing you immediately, the receptionist said, clearly uncomfortable with their aggressive demeanour. They say it's a family emergency. There is no emergency, I replied loud enough for them to hear, and I'm not available to speak with them. My father pushed past the receptionist, grabbing my arm. You're going to listen to what we have to say, young lady, the mortgage company called today. They're starting foreclosure proceedings. Is that what you wanted, to see your parents homeless? Hospital security responded quickly to the disturbance, gently but firmly escorting my parents from the building despite their protests. My supervisor, who had witnessed the scene, guided me to a quiet break room. Are you okay? She asked, her concern genuine. Do you need to take some time off? I'm okay, I said, surprising myself with the truth of the statement. A month ago, such a public confrontation would have devastated me. Now I recognized it as a desperate attempt to regain control, one that revealed more about my parents than about me. But I think I need to get a restraining order. The next day, with Amanda accompanying me for moral support, I filed for a temporary restraining order against my parents, documenting the hospital incident and the barrage of harassing communications. The judge granted the order, creating a legal boundary to reinforce the emotional and financial ones I had established. When the signed papers were delivered to my parents, the reality of their new circumstances finally seemed to sink in. The constant calls and messages stopped. The manipulation campaign against extended family ceased. For the first time in my adult life, I experienced true silence from my parents. It was both painful and peaceful, a necessary space for healing to begin. 6 months passed in a blur of new experiences and personal growth. My small apartment gradually transformed into a true home, filled with second-hand furniture finds and carefully chosen decorative touches. I adopted a cat from the local shelter, a fluffy orange tabby named Leo, who greeted me at the door each evening and slept curled against my side each night. My savings account grew steadily, and I began researching investment options for the future. At work, freed from the constant stress of managing my parents' financial crises, my performance improved noticeably. My supervisor commented on my increased confidence and leadership skills, recommending me for a specialized training program that would further advance my career. I developed closer relationships with colleagues, even dating briefly, though I recognized I needed more time to understand healthy relationship dynamics before pursuing anything serious. Through therapy, I began to process the complex emotions surrounding my family situation. The anger, grief, guilt, and relief existed simultaneously, sometimes overwhelming me with their contradictions. Dr. Marshall assured me this was normal part of the healing process, rather than a step backward. "You're mourning the parents you needed but didn't have," she explained during one particularly difficult session. "And you're also mourning the daughter you were forced to be the one who sacrificed her own well-being to support others. Both losses are real and deserve to be acknowledged." News about my parents came sporadically through family members who maintained contact with them. Their house had indeed gone into foreclosure, forcing them to downsize to a small apartment. My father had taken on more consistent handyman work, while my mother had increased her hours at the supermarket. They were struggling financially, but surviving, adapting to a lifestyle within their actual means rather than the artificially inflated one my income had provided. As my restraining order neared its expiration date, I faced a difficult decision. Did I want to maintain the complete separation from my parents? Or was there a possibility of establishing a new, healthier relationship? After several intense therapy sessions and long conversations with Amanda and Aunt Judith, I decided to attempt limited contact under controlled circumstances. I arranged for a meeting at a neutral location, a coffee shop equidistant from our homes, with a family therapist present to mediate. Aunt Judith agreed to bring my parents, ensuring they would arrive and behave appropriately. I arrived early, securing a quiet table in the corner, my stomach twisted with anxiety despite months of preparation for this moment. When they walked in, I was struck by how much they had aged in 6 months. My father's hair had grayed significantly, his posture less commanding than I remembered. My mother looked thinner, the lines around her eyes deeper. They sat across from me, tension radiating from their rigid postures. The therapist, Dr. Reynolds, took the seat at the end of the table, establishing her role as mediator rather than participant. "Thank you all for agreeing to this meeting," Dr. Reynolds began. "Rosanna has requested this opportunity to discuss the possibility of establishing new parameters for family interaction. Before we begin, I want to establish some ground rules. Each person will have uninterrupted time to speak. We will focus on the present and future rather than relitigating the past. And most importantly, everyone will speak respectfully without accusations or name-calling. Can everyone agree to these terms?" My parents nodded reluctantly while I gave verbal confirmation. Aunt Judith, sitting at a nearby table to provide moral support without interfering, gave me an encouraging smile. "Rosanna, since you requested this meeting, would you like to start?" Dr. Reynolds asked. I had rehearsed this moment countless times, yet the actual words felt foreign in my mouth. "I wanted to meet, because despite everything that's happened, you're still my parents, and I believe there might be a way forward for us. Not as it was before, but something new, something healthier for all of us." My father snorted dismissively. "Healthier? We've lost our home because of you. We're barely getting by." "How exactly is that healthier?" Dr. Reynolds intervened gently. "Mr. Johnson, please allow Rosanna to finish her thoughts uninterrupted. You'll have your turn to speak." I continued pushing through the familiar sense of invalidation. For 11 years, I supported this family financially, often at great personal cost. I put my own life on hold to ensure your comfort. When I finally set boundaries, it wasn't to hurt you, but because the situation had become unsustainable and damaging to me. My mother interrupted despite the ground rules. "We never asked you to support us. You offered—" "Mrs. Johnson," Dr. Reynolds said firmly, "please respect the process. Rosanna has the floor right now." I took a deep breath. The reality is that I did support you, whether initially offered or eventually expected. And over time, that support became taken for granted, even demanded. What happened at Thanksgiving made it clear that no amount would ever be enough. I needed to break that cycle for my own well-being. When I finished speaking, Dr. Reynolds thanked me and turned to my parents. "Now either of you may respond, keeping in mind our ground rules." My father went first, his initial anger giving way to a rehearsed speech about family obligation and the sacrifices parents make for children. He emphasized their current financial difficulties, heavily implying these were entirely my fault. My mother followed with a tearful account of her embarrassment when friends asked why I had abandoned them and the hardships of adjusting to a smaller living space. Neither addressed the years of financial dependence or acknowledged any responsibility for the situation. Dr. Reynolds gently but persistently redirected them when they veered into accusation or attempted to guilt me. The conversation continued in this vein for nearly an hour, frustratingly circular with little genuine progress. Just as I was beginning to think the meeting had been a mistake, something unexpected happened. My father, mid-complaint about the difficulties of making car payments without my assistance, suddenly stopped. He looked at my mother, then back at me, a flash of recognition crossing his face. "We really did take advantage of you, didn't we?" he said quietly. The admission hung in the air, startling in its honesty. My mother stared at him in shock. "Thomas," she began, a warning in her voice. "No, Ellen, listen to yourself. Listen to us," he said, shaking his head. "We're sitting here complaining about making our own car payments as if that's Rosanna's responsibility. It's not. It never was." Tears filled my eyes at this unexpected acknowledgement. "No, it wasn't," I agreed softly. "I lost my job, my sense of purpose, and instead of finding a way forward, I let my teenage daughter shoulder the burden." My father continued, his voice rough with emotion. "And then I got comfortable with it. We both did." My mother's initial resistance crumbled as the truth of his words sank in. "I just wanted things to be the way they were before," she whispered. "I didn't want to accept that our lives had changed." "So you made it Rosanna's job to maintain the illusion," Dr. Reynolds suggested gently. "To provide the lifestyle you felt entitled to, regardless of the cost to her." My mother nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't see it that way then. I just saw her as helping family the way family should. But looking back now, living on just our income, I can see how much she was carrying for us. Too much." This moment of clarity didn't instantly resolve 11 years of financial exploitation. The remainder of the session was difficult, with my parents sliding back into justification and blame at times. But a door had been opened. A truth had been acknowledged that couldn't be unacknowledged. It was a beginning, not an ending. As the session concluded, Dr. Reynolds helped us establish parameters for moving forward. I made it clear that financial support was off the table entirely, with the exception of true emergencies, like critical medical needs. Any future relationship would be built on emotional connection, not monetary obligation. My parents agreed, though, with obvious reservation about the practical implications. We scheduled another mediated session for the following month. As we prepared to leave, my father hesitated, then extended his hand toward me. "I'm sorry, Rosanna. I truly am. I never meant for things to go this far." I shook his hand, not quite ready for a hug, but acknowledging the significance of his apology. "Thank you for saying that. It matters." As I watched them leave with Aunt Judith, I felt a complex mixture of emotions, cautious hope, lingering hurt, and a new, unfamiliar feeling that took me a moment to identify. It was pride, not in them, but in myself. For standing firm, for prioritizing my own well-being, for finding the courage to attempt reconciliation without sacrificing my boundaries. "How do you feel?" Dr. Reynolds asked as we gathered our things. "Like this is the beginning of a very long road," I replied honestly. "But at least now it's a road that might lead somewhere worth going." 1 year has passed since that fateful Thanksgiving, when my parents uttered the words that changed everything. "This is our thanks for your little support." Words that hurt deeply at the time, but ultimately set me free from a cycle of financial exploitation and emotional manipulation that had defined my adult life. Today I live in a small but beautiful condo that I purchased 3 months ago, my name alone on the mortgage. The down payment came from savings that accumulated rapidly once I stopped supporting my parents. Every piece of furniture, every decorative touch represents a choice made for myself rather than others. My orange tabby Leo has a friend now, a black and white kitten named Luna, who brings chaos and joy to our quiet home. My career has flourished in ways I never imagined possible when my energy was consumed by family financial crises. The specialized training program I completed led to a promotion to nursing supervisor, with a team of nurses now under my guidance. The hospital administration has identified me as having leadership potential, creating a development plan that could lead to a director position within 5 years. For the first time, I'm building a career rather than just working jobs to support others. My relationship with my parents has transformed into something I never thought possible, a limited but genuine connection based on mutual respect rather than financial obligation. The path to this new relationship was neither straight nor easy. We continued with mediated sessions for 6 months, some productive, others frustratingly circular. There were setbacks and moments when I considered cutting contact permanently. The breakthrough came when my parents completed financial counselling, a requirement I had established for continuing our relationship. The counsellor helped them create a sustainable budget based on their actual income, addressing the financial illiteracy that had contributed to their dependence on me. For perhaps the first time in their adult lives, they were fully confronting the reality of money management. My father found steadier work through a handyman service that provided consistent clients, while my mother secured a full-time position with benefits at the supermarket, where she had worked part-time for years. Their combined income, while modest, was sufficient for their needs when properly managed. They would never again enjoy the artificially inflated lifestyle my contributions had provided, but they were no longer in danger of homelessness or utility shutoffs. More importantly, they began the difficult work of examining their behavior and its impact on me. Through family therapy, they came to understand how their actions constituted financial abuse, even if they hadn't recognized it as such at the time. My father in particular showed genuine remorse as he confronted his failure to fulfill his parental role during my formative years. "I should have been protecting you," he said during one particularly emotional session. "Instead, I made you protect me. I stole your youth, your opportunities, your security. I can never give those back to you." My mother's journey to understanding was slower, more resistant. The narrative of the selfless mother who sacrificed everything for her child was deeply ingrained in her identity. Acknowledging that the opposite had occurred, that her child had sacrificed for her, required a painful reconstruction of her self-image. But gradually, with the therapist's guidance, she began to see the truth. "I wanted to believe I was still taking care of you," she admitted eventually, "that by allowing you to support us, I was somehow giving you the gift of family connection. But that wasn't true. I was taking, not giving." Last month, I hosted Thanksgiving dinner at my new condo, the first time I had seen my parents outside of therapy sessions in nearly a year. The invitation was a significant step symbolizing my willingness to create new holiday memories to replace the traumatic one that had catalyzed our separation. Amanda came as my support person, while Aunt Judith accompanied my parents to ensure the visit went smoothly. I had prepared myself for awkwardness, for potential conflict, for the possibility that old patterns might resurface. Instead, I was surprised by how different everything felt. My father arrived with a bouquet of flowers and a handwritten card expressing gratitude for the invitation. My mother brought a homemade pie, acknowledging that I would be handling the main meal. They complimented my home sincerely, without the undercurrent of envy or entitlement I might have expected. During dinner, my father raised his glass in a toast. "To Rosanna," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "for having the courage to break cycles that needed breaking and for giving us a chance to be better parents even at this late stage. We're truly sorry for the hurt we caused and truly grateful for this opportunity to make amends." My mother added, "And we're proud of you, not because of what you give us, but because of who you are, something we should have recognized long ago." Their words weren't perfect, and they didn't erase the years of exploitation, but they represented genuine progress, a fundamental shift in how they viewed me and our relationship. For the first time in my adult life, I felt seen by my parents as a person rather than a resource. The path forward isn't clearly defined. We continue with monthly family therapy sessions, and I maintain firm boundaries around financial assistance. There are still moments of tension, slip-ups into old patterns that require immediate correction, but we are building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed, something healthier and more sustainable for all of us. The most valuable lesson I've learned through this painful journey is that true love doesn't keep score or demand payment. It supports independence rather than creating dependence. It celebrates success rather than exploiting it. For years, I mistook obligation for love, sacrifice for duty. I believed being a good daughter meant subordinating my needs to my parents' wants. Now I understand that healthy family relationships involve mutual respect, appropriate boundaries, and genuine concern for each other's well-being. My therapist once told me that sometimes being kicked out is really being set free. Those words resonated deeply. When my parents asked me to leave on Thanksgiving, intending it as punishment for insufficient financial support, they inadvertently gave me the push I needed to claim my independence. Their attempt to control me through rejection instead released me from the bonds of exploitation that had held me captive for over a decade. Today I am grateful not for the years of financial abuse, but for the strength I found to end it, for the clarity that came from distance, for the opportunity to build a life that belongs truly to me, and yes, even for the chance to develop a new relationship with my parents, one based on choice rather than obligation. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? How did you find the courage to prioritize your own well-being? Leave a comment below sharing your experience and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming family financial exploitation. If this story resonated with you, please like and share to help others recognize the signs of financial abuse. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, supporting family is admirable, but not at the cost of your own life and future.